Hey everyone, it's Michael here from adventuresinCRE.com. Today I'm going to walk you through how to build a basic construction draw schedule to account for the construction cost plus the capitalized interest reserve. We're going to do this without using circular references. I use this method on my condo development model as well as the draw schedule on my post about calculating for true loan to cost. You can find both of these posts actually in the description below if you're on YouTube and underneath the video if you're on our website. Also, if you're on YouTube, you can click the link to this post below and you can download the template to use as you go through the video. All right, so let's begin. So first you can see we have our construction costs in row 21. And right above that in row 20, we're going to put in our dates. We're going to use monthly periods. So let's start off with May 1st, 2018, and then directly to the right of that, we're going to use our eDate function. So let's do equals eDate, and then it has our start date, which we're going to reference the cell that holds May 1st, comma, and then months. So we want to do 1 month in the future. So we simply put in a 1, close parentheses, and enter. And then we're going to simply take this eDate formula and copy it down to the rest of the module. All right, so as you can see, now we have our monthly periods, so May, June, July, and so on and so forth. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is begin to build out our inputs tab. And so the first row here in row 10 is total construction cost pre-interest reserve. So that is referencing this $29.46 million. All right, so we have that, and then total construction costs with interest reserve will be calculated later once we put in our debt and our interest rate, and then we get our capitalized interest. So this cell here will include that plus our construction costs that we have already calculated here. All right, so we're going to do a loan to cost pre-interest reserve. So let's say 60% here. And let's see what our equity would be at this point. So it's this 29.5 million times 1 minus 60%. All right, so if we have debt at 60% and it's has 0% interest on the debt, this would be our equity. All right, so let's link this to our beginning balance. And for the debt, let's actually put the remainder down here. All right, so just to give you a little preview as to what we're doing here. So what's going to happen is first, our equity is going to run through until we've used up all the equity. And then after that, the debt gets funded through. So it's really, it's the construction cost less equity, then the debt comes in, and then our interest payments are based on our interest rate and the debt that's funded. So as you can see here, this becomes sort of an iterative process. First, the debt's funded, then the interest is paid, and then there's this cumulative balance that grows based off both of these. So this will make more sense as we go through, and it's partly why we have this loan to cost pre-interest reserve and then this true loan to cost function. And as we go through, it'll start to make better sense. All right, before we actually build out the draw schedule, let's actually do our sales inputs. And let's actually change this from sale proceeds to sale price less sales expense. And sell date. All right, so our sale price less sales expense, let's just say 38 million. And our sale date, let's see when construction ends. How about we say our sale date is January 1st, 2021. Let's do 1/1/21. Okay, so the reason I want to put my sales inputs in first is because the cumulative balance in my debt section, I want it to read 0 once the money is there to pay off the balance. And so this formula here in the cumulative balance section will be referencing below what shows the sales revenue section. All right, so let's fill out the revenue section. So we're going to use an alternative version of an if statement. And so instead of using equals if, we can say equals open parentheses. If this date, so equals open parentheses F20 is equal to our sale date, C18, and then hit F4 to lock it. Then, and in this type of if statement, we use the asterisk to mean then. So if F20 equals C18, then give us our sale price. And F4, let's lock this in. Enter. All right, so let's take this formula and copy it all the way down. And so real quick, what I did is Control C, held Shift and Control. I did the right arrow. Then I let go of Control and I hit the left arrow once. And now I'm going to do Alt H V F. And so this copied the formula all the way down. It kept the same formatting that was already present in the cells. So if we scroll down to January 1st, 2021, you'll see we have something there. So my column width is a little too small, and so I like to keep all my columns uniform. So let's highlight all of the cells. So that was, again, Shift Control left arrow. And then let's do Alt HOW, and I see that all my columns are 10. So let's move up to 12 and see what happens. Okay, 12. So that lets me visually see my $38 million. Okay, so we know that's working. All right, so the next row is debt repayment, which we won't know until we fill out our draw schedule. All right, so let's move back up and let's start to do our actual draw schedule. All right, so the balance in our first period equals our beginning balance. And the equity funded is basically a min statement, so equals min, and it's the minimum of our beginning balance or the construction costs in that period. And then our remaining balance is the beginning balance less the equity funded. And then our cumulative balance is the sum of all the equity funded in the current period and all the periods before. So for the very first period, I'm going to do equals sum. I'm going to go up to our equity funded row, or the cell F27 in particular. I'm going to do Shift colon. And if you notice up here, when I did that, it duplicated the F27. And so I'm going to hit F2, and by hitting F2, it allows me to move the cursor around within the formula bar. So once I hit F2, I'm going to move over to the first F27 and hit F4, and then hit Enter. And by doing this, you can see that I've locked in my first period of my sum formula, and so it will capture all of the equity funded in each of the periods. All right, so our beginning balance in our next period is our remaining balance from the previous period. And then we can take all of these formulas below the beginning balance row and just Control C and Control V. And so the reason I couldn't do that with the top one is because this first period, this beginning balance is referencing cell C26. And so now our beginning balances from here on out are referencing the remaining balance of the previous period. So now all I have to do is copy this and paste it all the way down, and that is all we need to do for our first half of our draw schedule, which is the equity. All right, so now let's move on to the debt section, which is going to be a little different now because, like I was mentioning earlier, we have to capture the capitalized interest, and we're going to have to create a formula in cumulative balance that does that, captures the capitalized interest, and also once the proceeds kick in at the sale date, it will effectively pay off the cumulative balance. All right, so essentially the first three rows are identical to what we did in the equity section, say for a couple tweaks. So the balance in our beginning balance in our first period is equal to C32, and then this time our min statement is equals the minimum of our beginning balance or the minimum of the construction costs less what was already funded by the equity. And so that should be 0 up until the debt is needed. And then our remaining balance is beginning balance less debt funded. And then we can start our beginning balance, which is equal to the remaining balance of the prior period. All right, now for the cumulative balance, I want to capture all of the debt funded from the current period and all the periods before. So we're going to do the same thing with the colon, F2, and then F4 to lock the first part of the sum of the equal sum formula. In addition to that, I want this cumulative balance to capture all of the interest, all of the capitalized interest that the bank is basically fronting us or letting us go without paying every period. So that money is effectively added to the cumulative balance and then is part of what the next period's interest is paid off of. So that becomes basically principal that interest is being calculated off of. So what I don't want is the interest from the current period. I want it from the prior period. So we will go 1 to the left. And we'll do the same thing. We have the sum formula. We'll hit the colon, F2, and then lock in that first part of that sum formula. And then what we want to do is subtract from our sale price. Now we know the sale is only going to hit one date, but we want to make sure that we capture that date. We always capture that going forward. So once the 38 million hits, it's going to be subtracted from our cumulative balance. So let's do the same thing. We have sum. We'll do the colon again, and we will lock in first part of this sum formula, close parentheses. Now, let's hit enter and let's talk about this really quickly. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a cumulative balance that is going to be less than $38 million. And so we don't want our cumulative balance for debt to go negative. We just want it to hit 0. So what we'll do is we will add a max. We will make this a max statement. So this will be equals max, and it will be 0, the max of 0 or this formula. So that way, once this goes negative when we pay off the debt, it won't be negative. It'll be max of 0 or this negative number, which will equal 0. Close parentheses. So just to be ultra clear, this formula will grow as our cumulative balance grows, and then once we have the money to pay off the debt, it will pay off the debt, which will be a 0 balance. All right, so let's add our interest rate. And for the purposes of this, let's just use 3%. Or let's use 4%. And the reason you want to be able to put this in manually all the way throughout is that a lot of times you'll be using like a LIBOR curve, plus a certain amount of basis points. So, and as the LIBOR curve fluctuates, so will your interest rate. But for now, we are going to just keep a 4%. And then our capitalized interest formula will equal, very basically, our cumulative balance times our interest rate divided by 12, sorry, for 12 months. All right, so let's do what we did above with our equity section. Let's copy these three formulas to the next column. And then We can take this all the way down, copy this throughout. And we also want to take our capitalized interest or capitalized interest payments, copy that all the way down as well. And so now a way to check this as we go down, what we want to see in our cumulative balance is our previous cumulative balance plus the debt funded in that period plus the interest payment from the prior period. As you can see, we have 1,537,810, and that equals our check. So everything appears to be working as it should. All right, so here's where we get into our iterative process and why we have a loan-to-cost pre-interest reserve and our true loan-to-cost. So we will come above here and we'll fill out, we'll just simply make row 22 equal to the corresponding cell in row 37. And then below in row 23, let's just do a sum formula. And then let's copy these, paste these all the way down. And here, with our interest reserve, is our true cost of construction. All right, let's also quickly add our interest here. Let's do the same down in row 37. And now, as you can see, since this is capitalized interest, this is money that the bank is, or the bank or whoever is your lender is funding, is basically paying for. So the true loan to cost is no longer 60%. It is basically the 60% from the total construction cost pre-interest reserve plus capitalized interest. So let's actually see what this truly is. So the debt now is the debt from our beginning balance plus our capitalized interest. And our construction cost with the interest reserve is our true total cost here. And so our true loan to cost right now is really 61.07%. Now the bank only wants to lend 60%, so they're going to calculate this capitalized interest, and this is more than they're willing to lend. And so the way we solve for this now is we simply go up to data, we do a what if analysis, and we'll do goal seek here. And so we want to set cell C15 to 60%, so 0.6, by changing cell C12, because this is our loan to cost pre-interest reserve. We want to calibrate this so that our true loan to cost equals 60%. So click OK, and there you go. All right, so now let's do a quick double check. So we have our equity divided by our construction cost with interest reserve. So that looks good. And now we have our debt, which is really the construction costs plus our capitalized interest. And let's go up into this box here. And so we have our equity, and our debt is going to be this beginning balance plus capitalized interest. And as you can see, we have a debt that's truly 60% and equity that's truly 40%. All right, so that's really the completion of the draw schedule. Now the rest of this model is just stuff that's common for any sort of pro forma. So I'm not going to walk through all this in the video. I will have the completed template version on the website for download, so you can just review the formulas and just see what I did there. But one final thing I wanted to show you is I was talking a lot about this cumulative balance. And you can see here, once we hit our 38 million, our construction balance goes to 0. All right, so that's really it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Thanks.